Okay, for this video, we're going to go over solving equations and specifically multi-step equation solving. So the two examples I'm going to show today are essentially full of multiple variables. If you can do multi-step problem solving with multiple variables, then you're going to be totally fine when it comes to having actual values plugged in, because it works the same way, and that's how your brain's kind of wired to think, is with the numbers in there. There's usually more things we can simplify in a given step with the numbers. We have less things to kind of worry about. So this is the harder version of multi-step equation solving. For the first one, if you recognize the kind of setup here, we are talking about kind of how a quadratic is formed. And I'm going to say for this specific example, I'm going to put solve for A. So when we have multiple variables in an equation like this, we actually have to specify, and we can't just say solve, we have to say solve for whatever it is. So solve for A, what that tells me is with an equation and when I'm solving, I need a three-part answer. So I need the variable by itself that I'm solving for, the equal sign, and then every other value or variable or anything like that on the other side. So with this, I'm actually gonna rewrite it here. That way, I should have put this above. That way, I can start with a line down the middle of my equal sign. Anytime I'm equation solving, I like to put that in there to definitively have a left side and a right side that I'm moving things back and forth with. If you think about algebra, you can do something to one side as long as you do it to the other. We got to keep balance here. So when we say one side and the other side, we have a left and a right now. So I have A that I'm solving for, and I want to get everything else away from it to the left side now. When we're doing inverse operations, so we're undoing things to move them over, I want to think about order of operations, and specifically going through it backwards. Now, if you don't solve it this way, it's not necessarily wrong, but this is going to avoid a lot of confusion. So the first things I want to look for, do we have any subtraction or addition in this problem? Because these go in the same step. And I actually have two instances of addition, so I need to subtract both of those to the other side. So I'm going to take away bx, and I'm going to take away c. And I need to do that to the left side as well. Now I can move to my next step. I'm going to break down the equal sign. We still have that. That remains unchanged. Now we have y minus bx minus c. These cancel. These cancel. We just have ax squared as the only thing left on the right-hand side. We have the a with something still attached. If I have a value next to a variable like this, it's multiplication that combines them. So to undo that, I want to think division. Now remember that there's no parentheses here, so the squared component to it is only on the x. So I can divide by x squared. I can divide everything on the other side by x squared. I have a equals, and then all of this, I don't know what any of these represent right now, so they all have to just stay as is. If we had values to plug in, like I mentioned earlier, I could do some simplifying. We would get a less complicated left side, but as is, this is solved for A. A three-part answer, the variable we're solving for, equal sign, everything else on the other side. Okay, let's move to the second example. I believe this is the ideal gas law over here, PV equals nRT. So tying in science a little bit. So all of these, if you notice, like I mentioned right here, are separated by multiplication. So I can show that if it helps. Multiplication kind of dot. Let's say for this we want to solve for number of moles. So I'm thinking that's in here. If you know science better than me, you're welcome to correct me. So let's say we're solving for n. solving for n, I need to start undoing things. I'm thinking PEMDAS again and in reverse order. Look for subtraction and addition because those are on the same step, but I don't have any of that here. I only actually have multiplication, so I can start dividing things to undo that. I said n is what I want by itself. The other two things are multiplied, so I can divide by both r and t. I can divide by r and t over here. That leaves me with my equal sign still. That doesn't change. Just n. So we can kind of do this one all in one step. Or you could have divided separately and that would take it to multi-step. So this one's kind of how you think about it. I have p v over r t. Again, like my left side over here, if I had values plugged in, that could all simplify and I could have n equals a number or something like that and it would look easier. Here, it is solved though. I have the variable I'm looking for, equal sign, everything else on the other side. So, like I said in the beginning, usually, at least, if you can solve equations with variables, you can do it with values plugged in. That usually helps condense things. Hopefully this one helped. Like I said, this is multi-step equation. All right.